This world doesn't reward kindness. It rewards control. And while you're trying to be good, someone colder is already planning how to use that against you. You've stayed up at night, haven't you? Your mind running wild, creating hundreds of tragedies that never even happened. You call it worry. But Machiavelli called it something else, the quiet surrender of power. Worry doesn't protect you. It bleeds you dry. It turns you into prey before the battle even begins. Because people can see it, in your shaking voice, in your restless eyes. They know you've already lost the war inside your head. Machiavelli once wrote, "A wise ruler does not live in fear, he plants fear in others." So, if you want peace, stop trying to feel safe. Learn to master the darkness instead. In this video, you'll discover 6 Machiavellian laws. 6 blades forged to cut through anxiety, hesitation, and doubt. This isn't about finding calm. It's about becoming untouchable. There's a hidden enemy silently controlling your life. It doesn't carry a sword. It doesn't scream in your face. It whispers, seeps in slowly, and eats away at your peace every night. Its name is worry. You've felt it before, haven't you? Lying in bed, eyes wide open, heart racing, your mind creating a dozen tragedies that never happened. A failed interview, a betrayal, a collapsing future. And when the sun rises, you're still intact, no disaster has occurred. Yet you feel exhausted, as if you've fought 100 battles in your sleep. That is the destructive power of worry. It doesn't protect you. It weakens you. It drains your energy, steals your confidence, and exposes your weaknesses for others to see. They don't even need to attack. Just by watching your trembling eyes, your uneasy voice, they know you're not in control. And in the game of power, that's the mark of someone destined to lose. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does not live in fear, he instills fear in others." If you let worry sit on the throne of your mind, you're no longer the ruler. You've become the puppet, and others only need to pull the strings. Look at everyday life. You wait for a message from someone close. Your phone stays silent, and your mind writes a story of betrayal. You prepare for an important meeting, but instead of practicing, you spend the whole night imagining your own failure. You torment yourself while others sleep soundly, planning their next moves. You think you're being cautious, but in truth, you're defeating yourself. The brutal truth is this: worry is nothing but a chain. It locks you in a prison of imagination, and while you torture yourself, others advance step by step, claiming the power you left behind. Want to escape? Don't try to worry less. Don't beg for peace from the outside world. Do just one thing: recognize. Catch your mind in the act when it starts creating a story that hasn't happened yet. Ask yourself, is this real or just an illusion in my head? The moment you ask that, the curtain falls. You see the trick, and you take your power back. A true leader never lets worry take the throne. He sits on it. He observes, calculates, and commands. He doesn't waste energy on nightmares that aren't real. He saves every drop of it to prepare in silence and strike at the right moment. That's the difference between the ruled and the ruler. That's the first Machiavellian law. Recognize, don't worry. There's a scene Machiavelli once described. The weak act like beasts cornered against the wall. Every sound makes them jump, bark, and show off hollow strength. But it's that very reaction that betrays them. The wise are different. They observe. They stay silent. They let others boast, let others drop their guard. And then, at the right moment, they strike. Charles Darwin once told a strange story. Whenever he stood before a glass cage containing a snake, even knowing the glass was thick enough to protect him, he would still flinch when the snake lunged forward. His body reacted, though his mind already knew the truth. That shows one thing. Human beings are born with the instinct of fear, and most of us spend our entire lives obeying that instinct. In the game of power, this is a fatal weakness. If you react through fear, you're no longer the decision maker. You become a puppet controlled by a primitive brain that chooses for you. And in that instant, your opponent, the one who hides his reactions, takes the upper hand. Remember this: the first to react always loses. For example, you hear a criticism in a meeting. If you snap back instantly, you've just revealed your weakness. You've shown the entire room that the words touched your real fear. But if you stay silent, your eyes still, simply observing, you make your opponent uneasy. He throws his knife, but it disappears into the air, and your silence becomes a weapon sharper than any counterattack. This is the art of observation. To let others believe they're in control, while you're recording every movement, every word, every weakness. They act rashly. You stay calm, motionless like a wolf watching its prey walk willingly into the trap. Fear, if you let it lead, will turn you into someone living by a script written by others. A small headache, and you rush to Google your symptoms. Minutes later, you're convinced you're dying. A rumor appears, and you scramble to explain yourself, defend yourself, justify your image. But the more you react, the more control you lose. You become a slave to invisible ghosts. Machiavelli would say, "Let fear exist, but don't bow to it. Observe it like you would a stranger. It appears, it screams, but you stand there calm, steady, staring it in the eye. And the moment you stop reacting, you reclaim your power." Imagine a prince. Before him, his courtiers whisper, spread rumors, plant seeds of doubt. If he rushes to explain, he admits weakness. But if he sits still, eyes lowered, one hand resting on the throne, letting them talk until they exhaust themselves, his silence makes them tremble. They no longer know what he's thinking. They fear his composure. Observe, don't react. It's not passivity, it's preparation for the decisive strike. Because those who observe see what others miss. A flickering glance, a trembling hand, a sentence spoken too long. In those small details, he reads the entire mind of his opponent. Once, a friend told me about an old merchant. During a negotiation, his rival kept provoking him, saying harsh things to force him into lowering the price. But the old man didn't react. He stayed silent, eyes indifferent, staring at the table. When the rival thought he had won and offered the lowest possible price, the old man simply looked up and said, "If that's what you want, I'll let you keep it." But did no. Then he stood up and walked away. The rival panicked, chased after him, and finally agreed to the original price. That is the power of observation. Others lose their calm, you don't. Others grow impatient, you stay still. And in that stillness, the balance of power tilts entirely toward you. You want to know who the world belongs to? Not the smartest, not the strongest, but the calmest. In calmness, he observes. In observation, he sees timing. And when the moment arrives, he acts decisively, unmoved by meaningless noise. Remember this: the ruled react. The ruler observes. There's something that kills more dreams than failure: hesitation. Not because you aren't smart enough, but because you think too much to ever begin. Machiavelli once said, "A ruler never waits for perfection, he acts amidst chaos." Because he understood this world doesn't reward the thinkers, it rewards the ones who act while others are still hesitating. There is a subtle kind of suffering. It doesn't come from poverty or loss, but from the endless spinning of your mind, imagining 1,000 possibilities and taking not a single step. That's the disease of the modern man, addicted to thinking, but starved of courage. You know that feeling. You stare at an unsent email, reading and rewriting each line until your courage fades away. You have an idea, a project, a relationship waiting to begin, but you keep waiting for tomorrow, for a sign, for the perfect moment. And while you wait, others act. They make mistakes, but they move forward. They are foolish, but they live. You, despite your clarity, remain still. That is the tragedy of the intelligent, knowing too much to dare to begin. Machiavelli saw this in every court. He once said, "A bad plan executed is stronger than 1,000 perfect plans kept in the mind." Because the world doesn't revolve around what you think, it revolves around what you do. Once, a young prince asked Machiavelli, "Master, when is the right time to act?" Machiavelli smiled, said nothing, and pointed out the window. Outside, a soldier stood in the rain, adjusting his armor, eyes fixed on the distance. "Do you see him?" Machiavelli said. "He doesn't know where the enemy is or how the battle will unfold. But still, he sharpens his sword. He understands action does not wait for knowledge. Knowledge comes after, like the shadow of the one who moves." The prince fell silent. He realized that every moment of hesitation was one step further from the throne. We live in an age of endless analysis. Everyone has opinions, theories, advice. But Machiavelli would call that weakness disguised as intellect. People don't really want to understand more. They just want to delay the moment they must face the truth. They fear the first step, because once they take it, there's no hiding left. You see it everywhere. A man afraid to confess his feelings because he can't stand the thought of rejection. An entrepreneur who won't start, fearing failure will damage his image. A warrior who hesitates to draw his sword, imagining 100 ways to die. And Machiavelli would smirk coldly. "You died the moment you began to think about it." The world belongs to those who act, not those who think. For in action, there is truth. In thought, there are only ghosts. I once knew a man who had everything: intelligence, talent, ambition. He spoke of great plans, ideas that could have changed his life. But year after year, he stayed in the same place. Not for lack of opportunity, but because he kept waiting for the perfect moment. One day, when youth had left him, he sighed and said, "Now I see perfection was the greatest trap." But by then, it was too late. Time never rewards those who realize truth too late. Machiavelli once wrote, "Delay has killed more empires than the sword." And if you don't learn to move amidst uncertainty, you'll bury yourself in the grave of endless assumptions. Action is not recklessness. It's the art of those who rule. They think only enough to serve the next move. They calculate, prepare, but when the moment comes, they do not hesitate. They know the world does not remember the thinkers. It remembers the ones who decide. Once, a courtier asked Machiavelli, "Aren't you afraid of being wrong?" He replied, "If I'm wrong, I'll correct it. But if I do nothing, there will be nothing left to correct." That answer is the spirit of the third law. Take the step even when you're uncertain, because every action teaches what 1,000 hours of thought never could, the real experience of power. Wisdom doesn't come from understanding every possibility, it comes from walking through one, bearing the consequences, and rising stronger. The overthinker will never understand this. They believe safety means control. But safety is an illusion. The Machiavellian moves through the fog, but with awareness. He doesn't need to know the whole future. He only needs to know the next step. If you want to escape the spiral of anxiety, act. Send that email. Make that call. Start that plan you fear most. Don't wait to feel ready. You never will. Let action lead emotion, not emotion control action. Because in the end, the world won't ask how much you've thought. It will ask what you've done. No one remembers the man who stood outside the palace gates. History remembers the one who dared to knock. That is the third Machiavellian law. Act, don't overthink. Because in the game of power, every second of hesitation is one more second you hand your crown to someone else. There's a subtle way to weaken yourself without anyone noticing, not through laziness, not through mistakes, but through absence from your own life. Machiavelli once wrote, "A ruler loses power not because he fails, but because he loses attention." He is everywhere, yet truly nowhere. And that's how an empire collapses in silence, not from external enemies, but from rot within. Have you ever felt that way? Sitting in a conversation while your mind drifts to things that haven't happened, working, yet replaying the words of someone who hurt you, holding your phone, scrolling endlessly, not even remembering what you're looking for. That is the disease of this age, people living as if torn apart. The body in the present, the mind lost between past and future. They think they are living more, but they're slowly dying in 1,000 distractions. Machiavelli called this the leakage of power. Every time you lose focus, you give a piece of your energy away. A piece to fear, a piece to others, a piece to things that have nothing to do with your path. By the end of the day, you are exhausted not because you did too much, but because you lived too little. Look at how the powerful exist. When they speak, they look directly. When they walk, they move slowly, but with certainty. When they eat, they do so as a ritual. When they listen, they truly listen. Their presence alters the room itself. Others feel a silent gravity, as if every current of energy is drawn toward them. That is the art of still power. No need to shout, no need to show off. Just be fully present. Because in a world where everyone is rushing, the calm one becomes untouchable. A veteran soldier once said, "On the battlefield, those who panic fire wildly. The ones who survive are those who breathe steadily and aim slowly." This isn't only true in war, it's true in life. The scattered lose direction. The present control the flow. Look at Machiavelli. He was no monk. He was a strategist. He didn't speak of peace as a reward, but as a tool of power. Because when the mind is still, it sees what others cannot. It spots the deceitful glance, the false smile, the tiny cracks in conversation. You don't just exist, you see through the masks of the world. There's a story of a general. Amid chaos, cannons roaring, soldiers screaming, dust thick in the air. While everyone panicked, he stood still, watching the wind's direction, the rhythm of the horses, the enemy's flags. An officer shouted, "Aren't you afraid?" He replied, "Of course I am, but I choose not to react, because if I lose presence, I lose the army." When the sun set, he won the battle without spilling every drop of blood, through silence, and the ability to see what others could not. That is the essence of Law 4. Presence is not meditation or withdrawal from the world. Presence is a weapon. It is the energy of one who knows what deserves attention and what does not. It is the power of one who commands their breath, gaze, and voice. When you eat, just eat. When you speak, just speak. When you fight, just fight. Everything else is noise. And noise is what kills authority. Some people live their entire lives without ever being there. They sit at dinner, eyes on their phone. They lie next to their lover, but their mind rewrites old arguments. They work, but their thoughts drift elsewhere. Day after day, they repeat that unconscious loop, wondering why they're always tired, why they always feel empty. Machiavelli would say, "You are not tired from living, but from not knowing how to live." A person of power never allows himself to scatter, because he knows where energy concentrates, influence forms. A single focused gaze can make others tremble. A minute of silence can silence the loudest man. And when your presence is deep enough, you don't just control your actions, you control the atmosphere itself. Others start to move to your rhythm. The world begins to shift at the pace you set. That's when you become the center of the game without ever speaking. There is a kind of stillness that doesn't belong to the indifferent, but to the patient predator. Machiavelli understood that true power doesn't come from noise, but from mastering attention. Ordinary people try to win every small argument. The wise don't need to win. They simply stay present long enough until everyone turns to listen to them. When you are present, you see manipulation. When you are scattered, you become its victim. Every system of control, politics, media, social networks, understands one truth. If they can scatter your mind, they can weaken you. That's why keeping your focus is the most powerful act of rebellion in our time. To hold attention is to hold your throne. When you are truly present, the world cannot penetrate you. Insults don't pierce you. Temptations don't derail you. You are not the one reacting. You are the one defining the frame. While others fight for the spotlight, you walk in silently. The room slows down. Eyes turn toward you, not because of what you say, but because you are there. That is the fourth Machiavellian law. Be present, don't scatter, because in a world of noise and chaos, the one who remains still rules. People spend their entire lives preparing to live, and in doing so, they forget to actually live. They master planning, predicting, and preventing, yet never truly step into the moment that's happening right now. Machiavelli once said, "He who is always rehearsing for the future will never have the courage to rule the present." We're born with a strange instinct to fear things that haven't even happened. Before a meeting, your mind creates 10 different scenarios. What if I fail? What if I'm mocked? What if I'm betrayed? Before you even enter battle, you've already lost hundreds of times in your head. And so, you live like an actor, repeating tragedies written by your own imagination. There was once a man who confessed that before every big meeting, he imagined his boss humiliating him, his colleagues laughing at him. He practiced speaking in front of the mirror, changing his tone, his smile, his gestures. But when the real meeting came, everything was fine. No one mocked him. No one tried to bring him down. And then he realized he hadn't been working all those years. He'd been rehearsing for a disaster that never existed. Machiavelli would call that the art of self-weakening. Because while you're busy rehearsing for imaginary scenarios, the real world keeps moving. And the fearless are out there taking what's yours. Fear makes people believe that preparation equals safety. But Machiavelli understood over-preparation is a form of escape. You fear failure, so you rehearse. You fear pain, so you pretend to be strong. You fear rejection, so you practice pleasing others. But in the game of power, pretense never hides weakness, it exposes it. The wise don't rehearse, they live. Because they know each real action is a forge that hardens the self. They don't act strong. They become strong by stepping into real situations, taking real risks, and facing real consequences. Once, Machiavelli watched a young general during army training. Every day, the young man rehearsed his speeches before a mirror, practicing his walk, his commands, the way he held his sword to look powerful. But when the alarm sounded for real, his hands trembled. His voice cracked, and his steps faltered. Machiavelli said simply, "You have practiced to look like a general, but you have never lived as one." That's the difference. The one who rehearses thinks he controls the game. The one who lives knows the game is chaos and masters himself within it. Modern people are no different. They no longer rehearse how to wield a sword, but how to pose, how to speak, how to appear. They edit every photo, every word, every reaction, as if they were performing a perfect role. But within that artificial perfection, they lose their soul. Machiavelli would look at them and say, "You are training for a battle that will never happen." And while they're pretending, time, the cruelest ruler of all, silently steals their chance to live. A woman once came to Machiavelli, afraid to speak before the king. She had rehearsed hundreds of lines. Machiavelli said, "You fear saying the wrong thing, so you will. You fear losing composure, so you will tremble. When your mind rehearses fear, you are training it to grow stronger." And that is the secret the powerful know. They don't rehearse for failure. They live through it. They don't fake courage. They train it by standing inside fear without retreating. There's a Machiavellian moment that changes you forever. The moment you realize that everything you fear exists only in your head. The world outside is colder, yes, but simpler than you imagine. No one cares about your mistakes as much as you do. No one watches you as closely as you think. And most of the disasters you imagine never happen. Every morning, you have two choices. Keep playing the safe role, or step off the stage, tear up the script, and finally live. The one who rehearses seeks to be loved. The one who lives seeks to be respected. A real person might make mistakes, be misunderstood, or fall hard. But every scar he carries proves one thing: he existed. While the ones who keep rehearsing, they die while still performing. The world doesn't need another performance. It needs presence, raw, imperfect, undeniable. Machiavelli once said, "If you must fall, fall in reality, not in imagination." That is the spirit of the fifth law. Stop rehearsing for disasters that never happen. Stop polishing perfect answers to questions no one will ask. Live to feel the weight of the world, the resistance of reality, and the pride of someone who stepped into life unafraid to get his hands dirty. That is the fifth Machiavellian law. Live, don't rehearse. Because in the game of power, the pretender will always lose to the one who truly lives. There exists a kind of power that needs no sword, no crown, and yet makes the world bow in silence. Tranquility. Machiavelli understood this. He once said, "The truly dangerous man is not the one who shouts, but the one who stays silent in the storm." Because in that silence, he is not controlled by the world. He controls it. In the Palace of Florence, among conspiracies, betrayals, and midnight executions, Machiavelli would often sit alone by candlelight, writing. He had seen the mightiest men tremble and collapse, not because of their enemies, but because they couldn't stay calm before their own fear. Kings lost their thrones, not to rival kingdoms, but to chaos within their minds. When a man loses his calm, he loses his entire kingdom, not the land outside, but the territory within. Machiavelli once wrote, "If you cannot rule yourself, you will be ruled by everything else." That's why tranquility is the ultimate weapon, one no enemy can steal. Picture a general. The battle erupts. Death reports flood in. Soldiers panic. Yet he sits there, eyes still as stone. Not because he feels no fear, but because he knows fear is human, while panic is a choice. And while others are moved by emotion, he controls his breath, his gaze, his command. That calm steadiness earns the trust of his men and the fear of his enemies. The weak believe peace comes from outside, from stability, approval, comfort, or safety. But Machiavelli knew peace is not a reward, it is a discipline forged in solitude, when you must stand upright in the storm with no one coming to save you. Modern life is drowning in noise. You wake up and reach for your phone. You eat with family, but your mind is elsewhere. You drive but argue in your head with someone who isn't there. People think busyness means living, but it's only how they escape silence. Because in silence, they'd have to face themselves. Machiavelli never feared silence. He used it as a chamber to sharpen his mind. When the world grew chaotic, he withdrew. Not to hide, but to observe from above, like a chess player standing over the board, watching others fight for a single square, while he sees the whole map. To master the inner world is not apathy. It is the art of controlling your reactions to the world. When someone insults you, you don't respond, not because you're weak, but because you know reaction is the prize for the manipulator. When life throws stones, you don't throw them back. You build walls with them. That is the difference between those who are led and those who lead. An old Machiavellian tale says, a king was betrayed. The court erupted in panic. They expected rage, screaming, punishment, execution. But the king merely smiled. 3 days later, the traitors were dead, not by the sword, but by the cold silence of his command. No one knew how he did it. They only knew that for 3 days he spoke no word, and that silence terrified the entire court. Tranquility is not weakness. It is the highest form of inner power. It frees you from the need to win every small battle, because you already command the long war. In a world of impulsive people, the calm one becomes the threat. His composure disorients others. He doesn't move to their rhythm. He forces them to move to his. That is how the Machiavellian keeps his throne, not by shouting, but by keeping his heartbeat steadier than anyone else's. When you understand this, you stop chasing peace as a prize. You begin to build it within. You no longer need quiet surroundings, nor validation from others. You need only yourself, still, like a fortress. The world may shake, but your foundation stays unbroken. Observe water, soft but unstoppable. Tranquility is the same. The angry strike against it and dissolve in their own fury. The wise use it as a mirror, reflecting and absorbing the energy of others. Machiavelli would say, when you reach tranquility, you no longer need to win, you become the victory itself. Tranquility is the power of one who understands life's essence, that everything passes, that true power is not in ruling others, but in becoming unruled. And when you reach that point, you no longer need to declare your strength. Your presence alone silences the room. Your eyes alone make others choose their words. Your voice alone commands attention. That is the final Machiavellian law. Master your inner world. Seek tranquility. Because in a world where everyone tries to prove their strength, the only one who can't be defeated is the one who no longer needs to prove it. You have just walked through the 6 doors of silent power. 6 principles not made for the faint-hearted, but for those brave enough to stare into their own darkness. You have learned to recognize instead of worry, for those who panic lose before they ever fight. You have learned to observe instead of react, for the first to lose calm is always the first to lose power. You have learned to act instead of overthink, for no one is remembered for merely thinking right. You have learned to be present instead of scattered, for in a world of noise, the calm one becomes the center of every room. You have learned to live instead of rehearse, for pretending to be strong is the fastest way to become weak. And finally, you have learned to master your inner world, for those who rule themselves no longer need to fear anyone. From this moment on, remember, you do not need to be understood. You do not need applause. You only need to stand upright in the storm, in silence, until the world itself feels that you have changed. Because when a person truly awakens, he does not speak of power, he becomes power. And when he walks through the room, the noise disappears on its own. If what you heard today made your mind tremble for even a moment, don't let it fade. Write this in the comments. I do not need to control the world. I control myself. That is the vow of a Machiavellian mind. Thank you for walking this entire journey. This is not the end. It is the beginning of a new era within you. See you in the next video, where we'll dive deeper into the art of silent manipulation, the use of darkness, and the mastery of calm domination.